All right, we're good to go. So fill out that survey at your leisure, and you can drop it off up here on one of the breaks. This is a 3-hour course, so we'll probably break every hour just to kind of like get up and stretch. But if you need to leave before or after that, feel free to just get up and take a break whenever. All right, so this is CSE 121. So. Your first full-on programming course in the sequence here at Clark. This is a course in C programming. The official teacher is Scott Koss, who is out of town for the first 2 weeks, so I'm covering the course for his first 2 weeks. I'm mostly using his lecture material and following his outline for topics, so it should be a smooth transition when I leave and he takes over. One thing that I do that's different from Scott, though, is I record my classes and I post them on YouTube. Primarily just so that you don't have to concentrate on writing down every single thing that I say. I'd like you to spend your time in class more thinking about what we're talking about and asking questions, imagining how you would apply some of the things that we discuss, and being interactive about this, because this is the 3 hours twice a week when I'm right here and I'm here to help you, right? I'm totally available. If I describe something and it makes no sense, right, just say, that makes no sense to me. Can you explain it differently, right, or whatever. And then, you know, if there's some code example or something that had 15 lines of code that, you know, you didn't write down, it's in the video. Okay, and I'll send an announcement through Canvas and give you a link to the channel where I'm going to post these. So, you know, you don't have to go back and watch them, but if there's things from the course that you want to go back and see for the first 2 weeks, they'll be available up there. So that's something that I don't believe Scott will do, but for what it's worth, I'm going to do that for now. So everybody here is registered for CSE 121? Okay, if you're not on the list, come and talk to me at a break and let's figure out what's going on. So, all right, one thing I want to do is take attendance. Let's start with that, and I'm actually not going to record that. So I will pause this. All right. So let's talk about the course. So I have a bunch of handouts, and I'm just going to pass these around and just work their way through the rooms. So this is the syllabus. So if you can pass that around. This we're going to hold off on. This is a one-page synopsis of basic Unix commands. And this is a quick reference for printf and scanf. And if these don't mean anything to you, that's okay, because they will eventually. No, it's just kind of trying to get a sort of general benchmark, so it's anonymous. I'm just sort of looking for averages, but a bunch of people registered kind of at the last minute, so there weren't enough copies. So I made some more this morning, but apparently not enough for everything. So let me run through the syllabus that you're getting a copy of right now and just point out some particulars in there. So CSE 121, Intro to C. Tuesdays and Thursdays in here, 5 o'clock to 7:50. The instructor is normally Scott Koss. My name is Nick Macias, and my office is right next to Scott's. So his office is SBG 113, I'm 115. So you know the main area in the middle of the building, the collaboratorium? if you walk through that area and come out the other doors, Izad's office is the first one you hit. I'm right next to Izad, and one more down is Scott. So the three of us are right there next to each other. And he suggested using Canvas as the email system. And I should be listed as an instructor in Canvas. So if you send, you should be able to send me email through Canvas. But if you try and you're not getting a response from me, bring that up in class, because there might be an issue going on. But let me give you my my direct email address. So it's just nmacias@clark.edu. And that's who I am. So I usually teach the 200 level programming sequence here. So how many people here are computer science focused? Cool, so I'll be seeing all of you in like either a few weeks or a year and a few weeks. So CSE 224, 222, 223, and 215, I teach those. In summers, I teach Engineering 270, the microprocessor course, and in spring, I teach Engineering 250. And this is unusual for me to teach 121, just standing in for Scott. But so I'm mostly focused on the computer science side here at Clark, but I do some of the engineering courses as needed. And I've been at Clark close to 10 years, I think 9 years now. And I enjoy it. All right, so the one required text for this is the C primer. If you've got the book, you know it because it's about this thick and it weighs as much as it looks like. And that's the main text for this course. Prerequisite, you've all satisfied this if you're in here, but it's basically, most people take ECS 120. I'll let you read most of this on your own, including the course outcomes. Course schedule, we're going to be doing the first 2 weeks together. And the grading rubric, so programming assignments, 9 total, quizzes, homework, midterm, and a comprehensive final exam, weighted as shown, numerically aggregated to give you a score, and your letter grade comes out on this table. Everybody has Canvas access, I assume? Okay, if there's issues with that, let me know. Assignments need to be completed on time unless you make prior arrangements, otherwise they count as a 0. Okay, and that's just a really good practice to get into. And I usually tell my students, try to plan for the unplannable, right? We don't know when your internet service is going to go out because someone with a lawnmower went over your cable in the backyard or something, right? We can't predict these unpredictable things, but we can still plan for them, right? So for example, if you have an assignment due at midnight, you don't want to start it like right before, right? And assume you can just fly through it in an hour because you understand everything, because maybe the power goes out, you know, or something happens. Maybe you get a flat tire on the way home, or you lock yourself out of your apartment or something, right? So you can't predict what's going to happen, but you can sort of prepare for possible contingencies. And school is a really good opportunity for doing that, right? I mean, that comes up everywhere in life, but you know, so don't leave things for the last minute. Plan ahead, leave yourself contingency options, and so on and so forth. Programming assignments are due every week, and they're due Friday at midnight. Okay, so that's 11:59 on Friday. That's different from Saturday at midnight, and so on. So conduct. The hardest thing that I encounter with this in programming courses is where the line is between talking to other students or looking online to try to get some help, where that actually slips into cheating, right, or plagiarism. It's pretty clear if you're writing a paper for an English course. If you copy what someone said and you type it into your paper and put your name on it, that's plagiarism, right? And the standard is something like 5 consecutive words from another source that gets you written up. With code, it's a little harder because sometimes there's only a certain number of ways we can write code, right? But also, if you look at somebody's solution online or a friend's solution, you can go away and you can try to write the code yourself, but you know what? You're going to recreate what you already saw. And if you do this on a long assignment, there's going to probably be large sections of your code that are going to look verbatim like whatever the source was. And that can get tricky to sort of tell the difference between, well, I actually wrote this on my own versus at some level I was regurgitating what I had already seen. And I think it takes practice to sort of figure out how to kind of navigate that shady line. For me, I suggest erring on the side of caution, right? If you're stuck on something, if something is not making sense, I would say your first action should probably be to get in touch with me. Shoot me an email or post something on the discussion area of Canvas or something and say, hey, I'm really not sure how to do this. Can you give me some ideas, right? As opposed to Googling it. Because if you Google it, you might find an exact solution that somebody posted when they took this class 3 years ago. Right? I had 2 students one year and they turned in exactly the same code. And I was, thinking one of them might have actually written this, and then the other one asked if they could look at it, and they copied it. And neither of them admitted to this. And it turned out they had both copied it from something they found online, which was turned in by a student years before. Right? So err on the side of caution. All right. So I don't generally read from slides, and I may do this a little because these are Scott's slides. But there's one thing I do want to read from the slide here. Well, I want to talk about ADA accommodations, and I want to actually quote the non-discrimination policy. Let me talk about accommodations first. Clark College is strongly committed to the idea of making sure that each student has an equitable experience here. Okay? I would like you to work as hard as you can to learn C programming, to make your programs work, to understand the concepts that we're talking about. I don't want you to have to spend energy with something like, I come here directly from work and it's hard to park nearby, so I'm the last one in class and the only seats are in the back of the room and I can't see the board from the back. Okay? That's not something I want you to have to juggle in along with trying to learn C and keep up with the other courses and so on. So if you feel like there's some sort of accommodation that would help you be able to do the best that you can in this class, whether that's extended testing hours, testing in a low distraction environment, having a designated note taker, having preferential seating, whatever, right? There are resources available. Okay, so there's a Disability Support Services office over in Penguin Union Building that you can talk to. I think it's actually Pub 13, but it's over there, it's signed. So if you feel like some kind of accommodation would help you, or if you just want to know more about this, you can talk to me about this. You can go to the DSS office, you can email them, you can find them on the website, you can give them a call. There's options available. Okay, but there's a lot of support here at Clark to try to make things equitable across the student population. So any questions about that? All right. So the other thing on here is Clark's non-discrimination policy, and this is the one thing that I want to read verbatim because Clark takes this very seriously and I take it very seriously. So I'm just going to quote here. So Clark College affirms a commitment to freedom from discrimination for all members of the college community. That's the one-line synopsis, but it goes into detail. So the college expressly prohibits discrimination against any person on the basis of race, color, national origin, disabled veteran status, sex, sexual orientation, age, gender identity, creed, gender expression, Vietnam-era veteran status, religion, marital status, and the presence of physical, sensory, or mental disability. The responsibility for and protection of this commitment extends to students, faculty, administration, staff, contractors, and those who develop or participate in college programs. It encompasses every aspect of employment and every student and community activity. Pretty self-explanatory. Okay, and this is college-wide. This is every course you take here. Okay, it's not just this course. If you feel like there is an issue, if something is going on, if you're not sure if there's an issue, but something doesn't feel like, you know, you don't feel completely safe or something is going on, right? Come and talk to me, talk to somebody, talk to another teacher, and we can explore it, right? Coming and saying, hey, somebody said something and I'm uncomfortable with it, doesn't mean that person is going to get kicked out of school, doesn't mean that it's, you know, going to land you in a confrontation. We can talk about it and figure out what, if anything, you want to do with it. And again, there's a lot of support at Clark College for that. All right. So that's the syllabus. And I already took attendance, and I told you where the buildings are, but there's a picture of it. So the collaboratorium is the big lab space in the middle. So I'm 115 on the 3 o'clock of that circle, and Scott's office is next door. All right, so first thing we have to talk about is where we're going to do our work. So a lot of us have PCs. Some of them run Windows, some are running OS X, some are running Linux. We have tablets, we have smartphones. There's desktop PCs in the collaboratorium that are available for use. But we're not going to use any of those to develop our programs. Okay, and this is a little weird because it's a programming course, right? But we're not going to do our work directly on our laptops or on the PCs. We're going to work on a different machine. Okay, the machine we're going to be using is actually located down in, I think, AA4. It's one of those AA buildings. And it's a machine called the CTEC server. And when I was first in school doing programming, you had to physically be next to the machine you were working on. So there was a building where the computer was, and we had to go to that building, and you had to work right in front of it, right? And later, I was at Berkeley, you had to use a telephone and call up the computer, right? And you had something that you could use at home that would talk to the computer through a phone line, right? Until your housemate picks up the phone, and then you lose your work. So we're fortunate because everything is networked today, right? Everything's been networked for decades, it seems like forever. So we can get from any machine on the network to this machine that we call the CTEC server. But you're actually going to develop your code and run your code and test your code and submit your code on this CTEC machine. Okay. Now if you have your own Linux machine, if you put Linux on your laptop, for example, you have another machine that runs Linux or something, you can also use that to, you know, work on programs, practice things, and so on. But ultimately, your code has to be on the Linux server because that's where it's going to get submitted. So we need to talk about how we get access to the CTEC server. And it's pretty straightforward. So, so it has a domain name, ctec.clark.edu. And from anywhere on the planet or the space station, you can use that name and it'll take you to the CTEC server. So there's a picture of what's going on. So over here on the right is your computer, right? Your very large looking laptop. And this is the CTEC server over in the AA cluster, right? And this is just a network connection. And you're going to run some code on your own machine, tablet, PC, whatever, that's going to let you type over here, but whatever I type is actually going to be received and processed by that remote machine. And whenever that remote machine generates output, I'll see it on my display over here. Okay, but I want you to try to keep in mind that even though you're doing the typing here and you're seeing the output here, this is not where your program's running. Okay, what's running here is a communication program, which takes my keystrokes and sends them over to CTEC and takes the output from CTEC and shows it on this display. But it's just a program that's just doing that communication. The actual C code, compiling your code, running your code, that's happening over there at that remote machine. All right, so you should already have a login on that machine. It gets set up automatically now. And your login name is basically the same name that you use for email. Okay, so for me it would be n.macias if I was a student. And sometimes if your name has been used, your name has a number after it. So if your name is John Smith, J.Smith has already been used, you might be J.Smith 24. But whatever name you use to get your email before the @ sign, right, that's going to be your login name on the CTEC server. And your password will be the same password that, that you use to get onto the computers here. All right, so different ways that we can access the CTEC server. I run Linux, but let me imagine that I'm running Windows. And the easiest way is going to be to use a program called PuTTY. And if you just Google PuTTY, look for putty.org. Don't go to this one that's called greenend.org.uk or hackme.org or something. Find putty.org, okay? And just click on that. And simple link, click here to download PuTTY. Do that, and you can just download, so it knows that I'm on Linux, so it's giving me other options, but if you do this, you should just see an option for putty.exe, 32-bit or 64-bit. They should both work fine. And it's an executable program. You don't have to install it or unzip it or anything like that. Just download the exe and you'll be good to go. Okay, I'm on Linux, so I use something called the Windows emulator, which is Wine, and that'll let me execute putty.exe. So if you download PuTTY and you click on the icon, you should get something like this, but more interesting than this. Or not. There you go. Okay, and you won't see this because you're just clicking on an icon. But you get this thing which says PuTTY configuration. Okay, here's what you need to do. This box up here says host name. That's where you're going to specify ctec.clark.edu. So host name. That's ctec.clark.edu. And the thing next to it says port, that should say 22. And the connection type below should say SSH. I can't promise that this is exactly the same window that you're going to see, but it should be because I tried to clear out all the defaults. So ctec.clark.edu, port 22, and make sure SSH is selected. And that's pretty much all you need to do. And then just say open. Okay, now the first time that you do this, you're going to get a scary looking message which says security alert. And it says the server's host key is not cached in the registry, and a bunch of weird numbers and things like that. And it says don't continue unless you feel lucky. You have no choice here but to say yes. Okay, this is a classic authentication problem. Once you've talked to CTEC once successfully, your machine and the CTEC server will set up basically a secret handshake. Okay, so that any time that you try to connect to CTEC, it will see if your machine knows the secret handshake. And if it does, it'll go ahead and continue. But how do you set up that secret handshake the first time? Right, so this is the problem with a friend that you want to be able to talk to on the phone, but you want a secret phrase that will ensure that you're actually who you think each other are. Right? Well, if you're in person, you can set that up and say, okay, I'll say such and such, and you say such and such. But if you're talking to the person on the phone to set this up, what if they're not the right person? What if you're setting up the secret handshake with an imposter? So that's what this is warning you about. But, you know, if you're sitting here at Clark, or you're on a server that you trust, a router that you trust, you should be fine. So first time you do this, I'm going to say yes, go ahead and trust, and after that it'll just remember that that I trusted this machine, and the secret handshake will work. Okay, it'll say log in as, this is where you type your username. Okay, so log in as and for me it's n.macias. Actually, I don't have a dot because I'm faculty, but first initial dot last name and possibly a number after it. So this thing up here, it says login space as colon space. That was produced by the CTEC server. Okay. Once I said OK, all I'm doing now is just passing keystrokes to the server, taking server output, sending it back. So anything that I see like login as, that was generated by the CTEC server. Okay, I took too long to type in my username and I got a fatal error. It said the remote side unexpectedly closed the connection. It only gives you like 30 or 45 seconds to log in. So, so I'm going to close that out and I'm going to rerun PuTTY. And I'm going to do ctech.clark.edu and log in as, I'm going to put in my username and Macias. I'll put in my password, which I hope I remember. And I'm logged in. So one of your early goals is to get yourself logged into the server, right? And it's just following these steps, and there's handouts that talk about that. So is this easy to read, this upper left window? No, it's not easy for me either. It's tiny, and it's unpleasant. So so let me do this again. And you know, every time I come in here, I got to type ctech.clark.edu. Okay, when I teach 224, which is the Unix programming tools course, fall course, one of the things I try to stress to my students is you're going to be spending a lot of time working with computers, right? Especially if you're CS track. You're going to be writing code, you're going to be debugging code, you're going to be testing code, and so on and so forth. One of the nice things about working in computer science is the environment can be however you choose it to be, right? We have complete control over the environment that we're working in, particularly in a Unix environment. Is it hard for me to type ctech.clark.edu every time I log in? No. It takes about 3 or 4 seconds because I've typed it a lot. But if I don't have to type that every time, it not just saves me 3 or 4 seconds, it stops me from getting onto a side task, right? Oh, first I have to type this stuff in to log in, right? So here's what I can do. I'm going to go down to default settings. I'm going to type load. That's not going to work. I'm going to type ctech.clark.edu. I'm going to come down here where it says save sessions, and I'm going to type the following default settings, and I'm going to say save. Okay, and now I'm just going to kick out of here. Next time that I run PuTTY, it's got ctech.clark.edu already typed in there. Okay, that saves me a little bit of time. This PuTTY program, right, which is just sending keystrokes to the server, taking the server output, bringing it back, this is highly customizable. Okay, I can do all kinds of things. All of these things over here are options that I can tinker with. For example, under Window, it tells me that I have 2,000 lines of scroll back. When things go off the top of my window, I can pull them back and see them, up to 2,000 lines. Well, 2,000 lines isn't a whole lot. So I'm going to make this 999,999 lines. It's about 1 million lines of recall. I can work for 10 hours and still see everything that I've done in this window by going back and looking at it. That's useful. You know when it's really useful? When you accidentally delete your program. You're like, oh, it was just working perfectly. You can go back and see where it was earlier. You can find the code earlier on in your session, copy it and paste it. It can be a good saver of time. Appearance, you can change what the cursor looks like. Let's go to font. So we're in Courier new 10-point font. Let's change that. And I'm actually going to make this like 16 point. I'm going to set it to courier. Well, maybe you'll see different options on a Windows system, but on Linux I'm going to use a font called Fremono, and I'm going to set it to 16. Right? When you're bored, when you got some time, play around with this. See what some of the different options are. Right? See what size works for you. Colors, you can change the foreground and background colors. I'm going to change the foreground to be green. I'm going to change the background to be black. And so on and so forth. Okay, once I'm done with all this, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to type in default settings, and I'm going to say save. And now when I say open, that doesn't look like 16 point. One more time. Let's make it 22. So default settings, save. Okay, that looks better. Alright, so there's the window I'm going to be working with. And I can maximize this if I want. I got a nice big area to work in. So general thing to think about, right? You're working in a Unix environment, which means you can customize it. Take advantage of that. And there's some things that'll come up in this course that'll help you do that. But then, like I say, in 224, we spend a lot of time on options for modifying our experience. Alright, so if you're Windows, your best bet is to use PuTTY. Okay, it's very reliable, it's free, it's a small footprint, it's been around forever, it's easy to use, and it's customizable. There is a Linux shell. Bash is a version of program we use to talk to Linux. There's a Bash shell in Windows 10. I have not been really happy with it. I haven't tried it in about a year, but when it first came out, I tried it. And it kind of worked, and then it got better, and then a bunch of things seemed to break, and I don't know. If you want to experiment, do some document searching online, and there's a way to actually set up Windows 10 to run something that looks exactly like Linux. But your mileage may vary. Okay, if you're on a Linux machine, you can log in like this. SSH is another program. It's like PuTTY, but it's a version of PuTTY that works on Linux. So SSH, and then I have my username at ctech.clark.edu, and that just asks me for my password, and I'm back on the CTech server. If you're using OS X, there's another version of terminal that will let you do the same thing. I can actually just say SSH $Linux, and it logs me into another server that I have. I can say VT, and it uses SSH to connect to another machine, which is over at Virginia Tech, that I use for research. So there's all kinds of machines all around, right? And you can use PuTTY or SSH or whatever your client program is to connect to whatever machine by just specifying the name of the machine. Alright, so if you're on OS X, you can go to Applications, Utilities, you'll see a terminal app, and if you run that, you get a window that basically looks like this. And that's where you can say SSH and connect to your server, CTech in this case. And if you're on Linux, you can go to Accessories, Terminal. Usually Control-Alt-T also brings up a terminal, but again, it's customizable. So for me, I just Control-Alt-T, and it brings it up. And you can also search for these things, but terminal is a standard term. All right, questions about getting connected? All right, so rehash of what we just talked about for PuTTY. And all of the stuff that I'm going through, all the stuff that's handed out to you and so on, that's all available on Canvas also. If you go under Files, you should have access to all of that. So how many people here have a laptop with them or a smartphone that you're comfortable typing on? So let's take a few minutes and go ahead and try to get onto the CTEC server, and hopefully whatever issues people are going to run into, we'll run into right now, and we can sort of problem solve as a group.
If we're trying to do it from phone, how should we do it?
You want to look for an application like SSH.
There's Terminus in the SSH client.
Terminus is pretty good. It's sometimes picky about how you actually, you know, where you would say CTEC Clark EDU and so on. Let me see if I have one here. Yeah, so Terminus, if you run that, you can just do the plus sign and add a new host and put in down under host name ctec.clark.edu and put in your username. You don't have to put in your password. I think you can let it prompt you for that if you don't want to save it, but all the other defaults look like they're good. And then once you do that once, it should remember it, and you can just click on it. So raise your hand or give a shout if you're connected.
Which app should I use?
What are your options? So you probably have to download an app.
I'm in.
You're in? Cool. Yes, you can download an app called Terminus.
The password is for the Clark students.
Yeah, that one's good.
Yeah, it's loose.
Yeah. You remember telling it.
Yeah, those days.
Yeah.
Install SSH on a Mac?
It should already be there. So can you get to a terminal window?
Yeah, but it says undefined.
SSH is undefined? That's weird. I'm doing it in lowercase.
Yeah.
Hmm. So SSH space, so instead of students.clark.edu, use ctec.clark.edu.
Oh.
ctec, ctec.clark.edu. Okay, do you have a network connection here?
Yeah, can this
Can you open the web page and get to it?
enter this, no.
Okay. So try that SSH again. You should be able to just up number after your name usually?
No, it's not.
Okay. And you didn't just register for this course, right?
For this course?
Yeah. Registered a while ago?
I mean, think about like,
The one that
was
So, but when did you sign up for CSE 121? Like recently or a while ago or not at all?
So like, sign up for like, pretty good.
So did you register for this course?
Yeah.
When did you register?
Probably like a couple months ago.
Oh, okay, okay. I don't know. Let's take a look at it at the first break. Because they should be, the account should be set up automatically. So how many people are successfully connected? How many people are having some kind of weird issue?
What's the username?
The username is the first part of your email address.
Oh,
So everything up to the @ sign, but not the stuff after. And the password is the same one that you use for emails. So first initial dot last name @ctech.clark.edu. All right, so who's getting weird issues? All right, so what's going on? And phone is going to be a tricky way to do it, but.
It said that my password is expired.
Oh, okay.
And,
Oh, okay. Okay, do you know how to take care of that later?
no.
Okay. Other issues? Yeah.
It's like opening the PuTTY application and then it gives me an error.
Okay, what's the error?
Network error, software connection, or
Well, you download, okay, can you try it again?
If you don't. Yeah. And then you log in using that.
That's strange. Can you make sure you get to a web page? I obviously did. Can you download it?
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. All right. See me as for break. We'll try it again. Yeah.
Software cause connection for it.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I got to it and then I tried my password that I normally use for everything and it wasn't working and then it aborted me because I tried.
Okay, but it got as far as asking you for the password.
Yeah, but now it's giving me the software abort.
Okay.
In terminal, it says connection reset by peer.
Interesting. How far did it get?
I just typed that in and then it connection reset by peer.
Okay. So yeah, something might be going on. Okay, so yeah, something seems to be going on with the server right now.
Yeah, because I just tried to re-log in, I exited the terminal, and I can't get back in.
Yeah. Okay. So it's probably not us. So maybe it's overloaded or something. I don't know. All right. So we'll keep an eye on it. But if you find that you're not able to get on later, right, definitely let me know. Shoot a note through Canvas or something, and we'll pursue it further.
All we have to do is just put in the host name and username and password, that's it.
Yeah. So Yeah. And your yeah. So I think there's a problem with the server. You had something?
The password I used to log in, like it's just like computer lab, that password, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not working for me. What?
How long do we have on break?
Try to reset probably.
I don't know what I reset, but just on the site.
Yeah, you can go to the Clark website, go to my portal, and you should be able to reset it from there. All right, so there may be some issue with the CTEC server going on right now, but we can.
What's a telnet?
So Telnet is basically like SSH or PuTTY. It's another program that lets you type and your keystrokes get sent somewhere, and when there's somewhere generates output, it comes back to your program.
How to use a telnet?
But Telnet is not secure.
Oh, okay.
So at one time when we didn't worry about this kind of thing, you could use Telnet. The problem is you type in your password, and if anybody's listening to the communication lines, they can pick up what you're saying. So everything gets encrypted now, and SSH stands for Secure Shell. The first S means secure. And it means that when you type in your password, the actual characters of your password are never being sent out, in this case, through the Wi-Fi network. Right? They're jumbled up in a way that that can be unjumbled by the receiving end, but not by other people who don't know the secret handshake, basically. So, but it's basically a glorified version of Telnet. All right, so let's take a 5-minute break. Let's come back at 6, and we'll start talking a little more about programming, and we'll start getting into some of the good stuff.
Not working.